So in this chapter on patterns of inheritance, we're going to look at how the genetic laws of inheritance are generated by Gregor Mendel, who is considered as the father of genetics, and is one of the greatest biologists we have known in the past. And he was working on pea plants to understand how the different characteristics inherit when he was breeding the peas. At that time, the understanding of a gene was not clear. So when he published these results, it was not well understood by the people. It was in 1890s to 1910, but only after he passed away, when scientists were going over his results, they understood the mathematical interpretation of how the genes are inherited. And Mendel at that time, he referred to gene as an unit of inheritance, and he did not know that they were made of DNA. So the first part of this chapter generally goes through the different terms used in classical genetics as opposed to modern molecular genetics. And then the second part of this talks about the laws of inheritance. So the first law of segregation is that the units of inheritance that are considered as genes are inherited in discrete manner and not in a blended manner. Okay, that's the first law of segregation. The second law of independent assortment states that the one set of genes, called as alleles, they inherit independent of other sets of genes or other genes. But fortunate for Mendel that he selected some of those characteristics that are coded by single genes and they inherit independently. Okay? But that is talked in the second law. The next part of this chapter covers about non-Mendelian inheritance or complexities of inheritance. So in this particular section, you would find incomplete dominance or codominance and pleiotropy, epistasis, and so on. So these were not described by Mendel at that time, but later on discovered, and we are discovering even more and more things in terms of patterns of inheritance. So the last part of this chapter talks about the applications of modern genetics as well as applications of classical genetics, understanding the patterns of inheritance in tracking diseases or disorders in humans. So overall, in this chapter, the main point that you want to understand is how genes are inherited, what was understood at that time as to what genes are, and what are alleles, and then how the different complexities of inheritance occur. So that is the crux of this chapter. The next chapter we are going to go into will get into the molecular basis of inheritance.